Good evening. Good evening. Happy Friday. Happy New Year. Happy 2026. I hope that y'all are doing well and having a wonderful start to your new year. It is quite a start over here. Nothing really to complain about, but it's definitely the middle of winter. So I hope that y'all are doing well. And that you have gotten caught up on our previous episodes of The Women Are Out of Control. We are off to a beautiful start with some amazing guests who have truly shared some powerful stories and experiences. I want to share a few positive updates from our previous guests because one of the things about interacting with the feminine success space or with me in general is it's a transformation journey even when that is not the intention. Um, and so we had Sister Gabby on. She was sharing her experience with walking away from the Hebrew Israelite space and walking away from a high control marriage and relationship situation. And now her work to bring her sons home. And we have as a community, and she has within her community been able to raise what she needed to raise to retain her amazing attorney and really invest in the process of bringing her children home. So, congratulations to Gabby. Also, congratulations to Aisha, who came and shared her story of walking away from the holiness religion and movement and into her spiritual journey as a comedic yoga instructor, as a clinical therapist, um, and now as the owner of a brick and mortar yoga studio. So, congratulations to Aisha. So much amazing progress has happened since we've started this series. And I just believe that so much of it is due to when you begin to use your voice, when you begin to open your mouth and tell your story and speak authentically and truthfully to what it has taken you to be who you are and be where you are and make the courageous decisions to choose yourself, you unlock more creative power and potential in your life. If we read from the Bible, the holy texts, they speak about sound, they speak about the word being the first tool that was used to create, and we have that power as well. So that's one of the reasons why this platform exists. One of the most important reasons this platform exists is to give women a space to tell their stories, to show up courageously and boldly and unlock the power within themselves to create the life that they truly desire on the other side of control. Society has taught us as women and conditioned us to acquiesce to control in very many ways, from religion to relationships to educationally. We look to authorities outside of ourselves to gain permission or validation to be who we truly are. And one of the things that we are starting to see as women are freer and more um, are participating in more ways in society all over the world is that when there are no barriers placed in our way, there is no competition for the brilliance of a woman, the creativity of a woman, the ability, the capability of a woman. And so as we unlock that here, as we step out of control and into freedom and into capacity and into capability, I encourage you to continue to find ways to use your voice and share your story. And even if it's just with yourself, even if you're not comfortable yet speaking it to someone else. One of the things that when I ran Feminine Success School for over 7 years, one of the things that my clients who sometimes labeled themselves introverts or were introverts and just truly experienced anxiety around sharing their story or speaking up, one of the tools that I always recommended for them was to tell your story to yourself. Allow yourself the space to speak, even if it's not to someone else. So utilizing something like if you have any kind of smart device, if you have any kind of smart device, there's definitely a voice recorder on there. Utilizing that voice recorder, I use it for everything from show notes to coaching notes to writing songs to poems. I use my voice notes app for everything, even when I feel like nobody else will get me, but I need to get this out. And I have no one else to talk to, but I need to get this out. I go on that voice notes app. So utilize that if you are not at the place where you are ready to share your story. Let's see. Kali says sometimes men are a stumbling block, and it's so sad. That's very true. That's very true. Especially one of the things that I always taught in feminine success school, feminine success master classes, the ones that particularly focused on relationships and men, is before you go out looking for a man, before you even decide, I want a man, I want to be a wife, what do you need that man's function to be in your life? Because so often, because I always say the feminine is like water, and water is often looking for a place to be contained, a shape to form itself into, whether that's the banks of a river or the boundaries of the oceans or a cup. Um, because of that, if we go out looking for relationship before we have decided who am I, A, and what is the function of this relationship in my life, what is the function of this person in my life, then we will often be off course trying to fit ourselves into someone else's mold, into someone else's life, their habits, their style, and all of that. So I agree that sometimes men and even same sex relationships, a relationship without clarity, anyway, could be a stumbling block for sure. So today's conversation is a the topic. I feel like there needs to be more conversation around this because I even remember being in this place. I remember being in a place where I did not understand the difference between protection and control. And if you go back, I'm sure in some of my those old Periscope videos are probably nowhere to be found right now, but old videos online when I was a part of a religious group, a religious cult, when I did have a more patriarchal perspective, even though I wasn't aware of that, I was very confused around the differences and remember saying things like, oh, well, I remember when I used to dress one way and then I changed the way that I dressed and men treated me differently. Or before I was in a relationship, I did one thing. And then in the relationship, my partner asked me not to do these things so that he could protect me and all of that. And being young, being programmed and conditioned within the society that we're conditioned in, those things are very common. But as we become mature, grown women, whole women, women who exercise our own inner authority and value and enforce our freedom and boundaries, it's very important that we're aware of the differences because they can be very subtle, and we can find ourselves straying further and further into control and calling it protection. Sometimes in an effort to give away our power, because as they say in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. But that is so true. The more you are aware of your power, this last year for me has been a like, oh, who girl? Like, okay, the more you are aware of your power, though, the more responsibility you hold, the more capacity you need to hold, the more you got to be in your body, and so many things. And because of that, and because of how overwhelming power can feel when you have been conditioned to be powerless, it's very easy to start looking for places to put that power. And the place that we have been told in society is where power belongs is with men. And so we look for, as we, a lot of times, not all of us, not every woman, um, but in many ways it happens along your journey. As we become more familiar with our power and we encounter more of our power, if you don't have the capacity for it, you're going to look for somewhere else to put it. You're going to feel the need to put it in a relationship, feel the need to give it to a man, feel the need to give it to your children, your job, a religion, or various other institutions that we have been told are more capable of holding our power than we are. So today, today I have, let me pull it up. I have a letter um, that a viewer wrote in and shared about her experience with, is it control or is it protection? And this is really what made me say, okay, we need to have a conversation about protection versus control, because I remember not having these thoughts in my marriage per se, but I've had other relationships and I've definitely had these thoughts. I have coached women over the years with these very things. And sometimes they're able to shift the dynamic of the relationship. And sometimes they realize that the way that that person desires to show up as a quote unquote protector is not how they're looking to be protected. And that's okay too. So, is it protection? Is this protection? Hi, Yaya. Let's see, let me pull it up. I'm writing because I'm at a crossroads and I honestly don't trust my own judgment anymore. I've been in a relationship for 8 years now, and on the surface, it's solid. My partner is just very protective of me. He says that the world is unsafe and that people will take advantage and that I'm too trusting and that he's only trying to keep me from getting hurt. At first, it felt comforting, like someone finally cared enough to watch out for me. But over time, his protection has started to feel like rules that I don't want to follow. He wants to know where I am and who I'm with, not aggressively, but consistently. He questions my friendships, especially the ones he says don't really want the best for me. He discourages me from sharing certain things about our relationship because people don't understand us. When I push back, he tells me I'm being defensive and that I should trust his intentions. He's never said I can't do things. He just explains why they're a bad idea, why they're unsafe, and why I'll regret them. And now I'm realizing and now I'm realizing that I move differently. I think twice now before speaking. I edit myself. I avoid situations, not because I want to, but because I don't want the conversation that might happen. When I've tried to talk about how small I feel sometimes, he tells me that this is what real love looks like, that everyone else is selfish and reckless, and that if I leave, I'll see he was right. Part of me is scared to go, not because I don't see the problems, but because I'm convinced that without him, I might not be protected, that I just might make mistakes and that I'll get hurt. I can't tell anymore if I'm being cared for or if I'm being managed. How do you know the difference between someone protecting you and someone controlling you, especially when they believe that they're doing it out of love? Oh, so that was, thank you, first of all, for sharing where you are. And you are not alone. It is a very common place to be. It sounds like there is love there in the relationship, and that maybe that love was built on some fears, fears of abandonment, fears of rejection, various fears that we can sometimes build relationships on top of from the man side and the woman side that cause us to either want to control or want to be controlled, or feel safe in that. So, for those who are watching this, as I was reading that, I thought about, how could this experience translate to what so often many women are experiencing when it comes to being in high control situations. Um, and these are some of the questions that came up. So the first part is, what part of your life, because as she said, sometimes you have something to say but you're not saying it because you don't want to deal with the conversations, or you don't want to deal with the confrontations. What parts of your life are you controlling and shrinking because you're trying to avoid someone else's reactions, or you're trying to avoid how they may respond to you? Because that is also a subtle way that we can be manipulated into accepting control. If every time you're speaking up or voicing your opinion, the person is saying, well, you're gonna see that I'm right, or you're gonna regret this, or that can cause you to start to self-police. And we talked about that in our previous conversation where we discussed silence and self-silencing. That will cause you to start self-policing, where they don't even have to control you anymore because now you're controlling you. And that is how folks sometimes get into your head, get into your mind. They start questioning you, they start sowing seeds of doubt, and that creates those seeds of doubt. Another question is, when you hear "I'm just protecting you," do you relax or do you tighten up? How do you feel protected when you hear that? Because we're going to talk about the difference between control and protection in just a second. And if you trusted your own discernment, what choices would start to look different for you now? If you trusted your own discernment, if instead of their voice in your head, it was your first mind, what choices would you be making differently? So, one of the things that, again, many times we are looking for a place to put our power. One of the things that stood out to me in this email is the transfer of authority. Oftentimes, especially in a long-term relationship, this woman said it's been 8 years that they've been in this relationship, that these seeds of doubt have been being sown, that his perspective of control or protection has been the ruling order in the relationship. At some point, he became her authority. And what's really interesting is that we start to, people, not just women, not just men, children even, when an authority figure creates conflict with us, we say one thing, they say another thing, we can start to ignore our signals in our own body that are telling us what's actually safe, what actually feels good, what's actually intuitive, what's actually right and aligned for you. That transfer of authority is so important to be mindful of in relationships, because before we can be controlled, we have to give up control. We have to give up our authority over ourselves before we can be controlled, whether we're talking about a regime or we're talking about a relationship. Before we can be controlled, we have to give up authority. We have to give up our choice. We have to consent in some way and say, okay, I surrender. Whether that's you're saying you want to wear this dress, who knows, I want to wear this dress out, and he says, well, where you think you're going in that dress, and you're like, well, I guess I'll change. That's giving up an authority. Even, and I've shared this many times in our relationship, my husband and I have shared this a bunch of times early on. um I am a little bitty woman, y'all. So I know I look tall online, but I'm very small, and y'all know small women are feisty. And so I am a very feisty person. And early on, first of all, my husband is the exact opposite of feisty. He is very much the most chill, laid back person you'll ever meet in your life. Okay. And early on, a part of what helped me say, okay, I can see how this can even happen subtly. My attitude and my pop offiness, he was like, yo, that's not gonna work. That is not gonna work. Like, I am the leader of this family, and this is not how we represent ourselves. This is not. While compromise was necessary there, because popping off is not always the way to handle things. And I needed to mature and grow in that. What I have learned over the years was that I gave up a lot of my authority in agreeing to completely water myself down to accommodate non confrontation. Because sometimes confrontation is necessary. Sometimes conflict is needed in order to facilitate change. And so that's something I had to go back and get, was my own authority over my own. I say what I want. And it's just that. That's that. Nobody else has authority over my voice but me. Am I more mindful with my words now? Absolutely. That was my own learning process though. And so often the learning process of becoming the woman that you need to be truly for you is wrapped up in the parts of yourself that other people are trying to protect you from. You were given those parts because your soul came here to learn a lesson from all of you, from your whole self. Don't let anybody else take that away from you. Now, when it comes to gratefully, my husband is not a controlling person. So his approach was not, if you don't stop doing this, we gonna have problems. No, that wasn't it at all. And when I think about control versus protection, that is often one of the fine lines. If you Going back to the email, when she said, when I speak up, he'll say, he doesn't say I can't do things. He just says it's a bad idea. He tells me I'll regret these things. He'll tell me that it's unsafe. Um, when I do push back, he tells me I'm being defensive. When you defend yourself in a situation where you're being protected, when you feel like you have to defend yourself, that person who claims that they're protecting you is going to pause and listen, because wait a minute, the one I'm protecting feels attacked in some way. That's protection. Protection is also being willing for the quote unquote protectors to check themselves and say, okay, is this actually protecting this situation or this person? Is this creating safety for them? Or is this just making me feel comfortable? because often control is about what makes the controller comfortable, not what actually makes the protected or the person under their control safe. Another thing that I notice with it is control is often framed with, if you don't, then I won't. If you don't do what I say, then I won't protect you. Y'all see it in the comments all the time. If the she's what did she do? Um, maybe she was mouthing off. Maybe she said the wrong thing. Maybe she did the wrong thing, or all of these things. Or if she's not his woman, then he shouldn't protect her. Or all of these things that are truly not protective. They're controlling. You're looking to have people under your control if you're framing it, if you don't, then I won't. If you don't change the dress, if you don't change the attitude, if you don't do what I say, then I won't protect you. Because control is often about who's getting the final say. Who gets the final say? Who gets to lay down the law? And high control religious spaces often, most spaces in society, give that authority to men. Because of that, we too, as women, can tend to give that authority to men. Um, and it's time for us to remember that we are capable of making good decisions, that we are capable of living and learning, that we are capable of making mistakes and recovering, that we are capable of living through regret. Because all of these things that are being positioned to you as, I'm trying to protect you from mistakes. I'm trying to protect you from regret. I'm trying to protect you from friends that maybe don't have the best intention for you. We cannot, I cannot, you cannot protect yourself from every possible negative outcome, nor is that the wise thing to even try to attempt. You supposed to learn from some hard stuff. You're supposed to learn from the friendship that didn't go well, the person who didn't have the best intentions for you, the mistake that you made, the regret that you have. You are okay. You're safe to learn lessons. And when you realize that, then you will stop transferring your authority to anyone else. Husband, boss, pastor, mother, father, anyone else. You are safe to learn the lessons that your soul came here to learn. And you don't need anybody to protect you from that. You don't need anyone to control your path such that you don't run into any roadblocks, because those roadblocks are there to teach you. And so in this situation, it really is on you to decide, thank you, I appreciate your input, and I will make my final decision. And if that person, if that other adult that you are in a relationship with is not okay with you making decisions for yourself, then that is control. That is not protection. Okay. Kali says, I wouldn't even be able to sum up my marriage as quickly, but I can relate. Yeah, that was a really great, I guess because she was kind of talking about one theme within the relationship, and not the full context of how it got that way. But overall, as a theme, I think that, whether it's my situation where early on with my husband, it was a subtle way to control what made him feel uncomfortable. He was very uncomfortable with confrontation at the time and was like, no, because you're going to create friction and all of these other things. Or it's more overt. like someone telling you, stop hanging out with those friends, I don't like those friends. Stop wearing those clothes, I don't like those clothes. Stop working that job, I don't like that job. I've seen a lot of that lately where um partners, fiancés, husbands, less husbands. I don't see husbands saying things like this often, but boyfriends and partners and fiancés, not that there's like a better or worse, but I just see it less with husbands, probably because the financial investment is different. But this idea of like a woman giving up a promotion or career advancement to prove that she loves him, or to prove that she's really all in on the relationship, that is control. That is not protection. That is not a person trying to, because a lot of times the men will say, oh, I'm trying to protect the relationship, and you're going to be gone more, and all of these different, that is control. That is not protection. A person who is truly protecting you, think about this. A person who is truly protecting you wants you protected financially. They want you protected in your career. They want to see you progressing because they know that staying still is not an option in life. You need to be either progressing or being pulled back. They want to protect the investments that you've made in yourself. You have invested in your education. You've invested in your career advancement. You've invested in certifications. You've invested in understanding your finances. They don't want to destroy that or diminish that or make you have to choose between, well, what you've invested in yourself and the relationship. A person who truly loves you and is protecting you is going to protect that and encourage you to protect that as well. So, very important to be mindful of. Very important to be mindful of. Um, Having clear inner authority, being clear on your own authority is not about making the right decision all the time. Because when a person, usually in relationships, we easily fall under control because of our fear of making the wrong decision. And we think others know better, they have more experience, and it's great to get guidance and support. But your inner authority, your inner guide is the one that truly knows. Um, definitely not about you being right all the time. It's about you feeling safe in your own knowing, feeling safe enough to not need permission. We all need protection in some ways, and protection is okay. Protection is creating a safe environment for those that you love to exist within, not creating an environment that they feel constricted by, confined by. Protection allows you to feel safe to expand. Control makes you feel smaller and smaller. It feels like you're constantly cutting off more and more parts of yourself. You're cutting off your friendships. Now you're cutting off your voice. You're cutting off your words. You're not saying too much. You're cutting off your personality. You're changing your wardrobe. You're cutting off your career. Your world gets smaller and smaller under control. And that's why it's so important for us as women to say that the buck stops here societally when it comes to the institutions that seek to control everything about being a woman. Because the more we give, the more control takes. Protection creates a more and more expansive and safer, wider space for even more creation to exist within, for even more love to exist within, for even more collaboration, growth to exist within. Okay. So I hope that this has helped someone today. I try not to make these lives too long. Definitely, y'all know if you've been around for a long time, y'all know I used to go and go and go. But I try to say what I need to say as quickly as possible, save y'all some time, and also give you some time to digest what you are hearing here. If you have thoughts that you want to share, if you have a story that you want to share, our email for this channel is talktothewomen@gmail.com. Talktothewomen@gmail.com. And you can send your emails there. We will keep it anonymous for you and ensure that if you need some insight, if I have any to share, I can share it. Also, if I know a resource within my community, I've been coaching and consulting for over a decade now. Tons of other coaches, consultants, grief, divorce, lawyers, counselors, therapists are within my network. So if I have a resource, I'm happy to share it with you. Someone here says control is about boundaries. Control is not about boundaries. Boundaries are about boundaries. So with that, I hope that y'all have an amazing evening, that you are preparing for a beautiful 2026. I look forward to our next conversation. Peace.